Alcohol. How'd you quit drinking?
The demons don't have control over me. I have control over them.
Recovery is the reason I get to do everything else in life that I get to do.
You talk negativity. You talk, I can't, I won't, I'll fail. That's what you're going to get.
The important thing is what you feed your mind.
I came home, I had a gallon of whiskey.
Words is, are you okay?
Thank you.
And that is so powerful. I mean, it is.
The human species is the only species that doesn't wake up daily to strive to reach their full potential.
We got Matt Walters here. Well, Matt, I've heard a little bit about your story, and it's been kind of something for me to get you on and kind of give people, there's a lot of people out there that struggle with, addiction, alcohol, all this, but yeah, wherever you feel like it's comfortable, you want to start. I mean, like, I know you was young and wild. I mean,
Yeah.
you can go from wherever you.
I'm a member of a couple 12-step programs.
Yeah.
Both of them are anonymous.
Yeah.
And I give talks to them, and I can kind of give you a talk of what happened. But and I qualify for both.
Okay.
The programs I go to,
Right. Yeah. Does that help you out? Continue going to them?
Yeah, it helps me. I know people that have gone to meetings and worked the program in one of these programs, and I guess they matured and they don't go anymore, and they're still sober, clean, whatever you want to call it. But my story goes. I qualify for all of it. My drug of choice was more of it. It don't matter what it was.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter the method of delivery. I would drink it, smoke it, snort it, poke it. It just didn't matter. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol were my higher power.
Right.
Things just got so bad I couldn't stand myself.
Right. So, like, what would you say that kind of made what was your beginning? Like, what's the first thing that just
beginning of my drinking and or my beginning of my recovery?
Well, what was your beginning? Like, did you start drinking first and then dip into drugs?
Yeah, I started drinking, and I was I learned to drink in Boy Scouts. I had
That's crazy.
Yeah, man, yeah, and I was an Eagle Scout. I am an Eagle Scout. If you're an Eagle Scout, you're like a Marine. You're always
you're
one.
always yeah. I got you.
And I did that because I was. We would go camping a whole lot, and every time we would go camping, we would get loaded.
Yeah.
We would drink.
Right.
And my next door neighbor, he was in Boy Scouts with me, and he was my first drinking buddy, and he's been sober over 40 years now. And when I came into the rooms, he said, "We've been waiting on you," But to give you an idea how that I qualified it, and they talk about alcoholism, they talk about it, and I call it just the disease of addiction.
Right.
But in looking back, I know that every time I drank, it was to the point of blacking out.
Yeah.
I never said to myself with anything, I never said, I better quit, I'm feeling a little tipsy, or I better quit, I'm getting too high. I never said that. It was always something other than my choice that would separate me from using. I either passed out, ran out of money, got locked up, something happened other than me saying I need to quit before I would quit,
Right.
And,
so like, I mean, did you ever go through rehab or try to quit before and wasn't able to, or did
I went, well, the best way to put it is I switched what I was doing, change things.
Different things. I got you.
Right, different things.
And
but,
that made you feel like you was quitting because you was
yeah.
quitting something else.
You know, the only thing I wanted to quit was having the foot on my neck. You know, I wanted everybody to get off my back.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was the biggest problem. It
Right.
wasn't my drinking. It wasn't my using. My biggest problem was everybody was on my back. You know.
Right.
And
Right.
so I went to when I was about 40 years old, I went to what do they call it? IOP, intensive outpatient.
Right.
I went to that down at Baptist East. And, you know, the funny thing about it was they said, you know, we were down there, and it was a 30-day program, and it was in May, and we had to go to it was Memorial Day. Yeah, it was Memorial Day. And they said, well, we can either not come for Memorial Day and y'all have to go to a meeting, or you can come, or we'll come down here. And we all said, well, we'll go to a meeting there. I think there were 5 guys in that group with us. And so I went to a small AA meeting, and I ended up going there a few times. And I walked in the basement of the church, and there were 8, 10, 12 guys in there, old dudes. And they were all sitting there griping and bitching and moaning about how bad things were. This was my perception of it. This was my perception.
Right.
I'm thought to myself, what a bunch of dweebs. I'm glad they got somewhere to go to where they can moan and groan about how bad they got it. Well, fast forward 5 years later, when I really needed to come in, when I came in because I couldn't stand myself, I go back into that same room 5 years later, and there's that same 8, 10, 12 guys sitting there. And they got to talking, and I couldn't believe how smart they'd gotten in those 5 years since I was gone, you know?
Right.
But so I did that. I went to that program. It was a 30-day outpatient program. I went to that, and so what I did then was I quit drinking. I just switched, you know.
Yeah.
I started doing a lot of cocaine.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And I was thinking nobody could tell. Nobody knew. Well, you know, that's the biggest.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's what we all think. But
Right.
but that was the biggest lie that I was. And you know, one side of my brain was selling a load of crap, and the other side was buying it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I had convinced myself that I was fooling everybody.
Right.
But you know, what happened to me was I went on for 5 more years like that. And, you know, we know what's right or wrong when we're in
Right.
kindergarten or
eventually,
first
yeah,
grade.
Right.
And we know what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
And I had become everything I never said I was going to be. And I fell down on my knees on June 9th, 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah. And I said that alcoholic's prayer, you know. I said, God help me.
So that's what, 20, that's 20 something
20 years, yeah, it's a little over 20 years
ago.
Actually, today, I can tell you, I got a little app on my phone.
Yeah.
It's been 7,571 days.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So actually, 7,572 days ago was the last time I used any mind or mood altering chemical.
Man.
And but I said that alcoholic's prayer, God help me, and I felt something.
Right.
You know, I felt like the hand of God touched me and said, "You're gonna be all right."
Right.
And so that started my
That was the
journey.
beginning.
The beginning of my recovery.
Right.
And, you know, I went into the rooms, that 12-step program, and I was scared to death because
Yeah.
I tried everything. I tried everything I could to keep living like I was,
Right.
like I'd been doing. And I was scared to death because the way I'd been doing it wasn't working, and I had to do something else.
Yeah.
And I had been living, I had been, 30 years of hard drinking and doping.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I've been doing.
Right.
Yeah. And it scared me to death. But I knew that I didn't want to be. I had to do something different because I couldn't stand myself. I could not stand myself.
Right.
I hated what I had become.
Right.
And here's a funny thing about it. When I decided to get clean and sober, I still had a house, was still married. I was still had a cell phone, still had a car. I don't know about the job. That was kind of a shaky thing. But, I wasn't living in the gutter.
Right.
You
didn't hit bottoms, what you're saying.
Yeah, I hit bottom. But here's what I did. Instead of living in the gutter and wallowing in the gutter, I picked it up and brought it home with me so my family could wallow in it with me.
Right.
I brought all that misery home. And I hear people say in these meetings, I'm so glad I was an alcoholic so I could get sober and get a relationship with God. And I tell you, I'm not glad I'm an alcoholic because of all the shit I put my family through.
Right.
The misery I put them through.
Right.
And if I could change anything, I would change all that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was, when I got married, I'd say, I'm going to quit this drinking.
Right. Right.
But-
Now, you with the same woman? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I met my wife when I was 20 and she was 16.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we dated for 11 years before we got married.
Awesome.
And so we got married, I was 29
Yeah.
or 31, something like that.
Now, did she drink with you? Or
Oh,
or what?
yeah.
Right.
But she wasn't no alkie like me.
Right, she could handle it.
Yeah. Well, I guess, we had a whole lot of fun, and,
Right.
and things were, we had a lot of fun. I
Right.
had a lot of fun, but then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it gets to the point where basically what happens, I think the alcohol and drugs take over your life,
Yeah.
And
And so when you put them down, I mean, that made it where, she had to basically stop. with
she
you.
wasn't, we had kids by then, and but she wasn't like me. She didn't have to drink all the time.
Right,
She didn't have
right.
to take dope all the time.
No, I
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
well, the reason I asked that is because my brother, he quit drinking. He's like 4 or 5 years sober.
Yeah.
But his woman still goes out, with the girls sometimes
yeah.
and just kind of has a drink. And I didn't know if that was, if you had to-
she goes out and has a drink, and a lot of times we'll go out and she'll have a drink.
Right.
But I tell you what I do
that
is
don't affect you.
not anymore. But I'd been sober for 2 or 3 years before I would go out and eat on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because we would always go out and eat on Saturday night, and I'd always say, well, let's go at such and such a time to where I knew the restaurant would be crowded, and we'd have to wait for an hour or so, and I could pound down 3 or 4 drinks. I
Right.
could get,
No, I know.
I
I
could
get what you're
get
saying. Yeah.
pretty loaded before,
Right. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But so now when we go to a restaurant, and the first thing they ask is, can I get you something from the bar? And I'll say no.
Yeah.
And if they ask me again, they ask me, can I get you something from the bar? I'll say, no, just bring me a Coke because I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety.
Yeah.
And if they ask me again, I'll say, go ahead and bring me something. I said, it don't matter what it is, 100 proof, anything 100 proof in a big tall glass. And I said, go ahead and call the cops before you bring it out here, because I'm going to get wild and crazy and tear something up, get in a fight. And they'll look over at my wife and she'll shake her head, yeah. That's what I tell them,
Yeah.
But
So you've had a lot of them days where you didn't know where you woke up and was like, I don't know what someone's going to tell me I did last night.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. You look out and see if your car's there, and you look and see, you say good morning, and you can tell
Yeah.
by the way your wife says good morning, or if she says good morning, you can tell if you pulled something that you don't remember.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can tell by that tone of voice.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
And,
what my brother says. He
Yeah.
same. He, he like I said, he's 4 or 5 years, but he said the same thing. You know, he's like there's times where he just woke up and was like looking at her, seeing if anyone was going to tell him what he did last night. I'm like, yeah. I never did that. I mean, I partied and I had my time when I was younger, but I never got to the point to where I didn't know what was going on.
And you know, drugs and alcohol took over my life.
Yeah.
And we talk about a higher power. You know, drugs and alcohol was my higher power.
Right.
You know.
And so during the times of you doing drugs and alcohol, partying and all that, did you have God in your life at all?
You know, I was raised in a church.
Right.
Would go to church. But I figured that I'd pull so much stuff that God was. You know, I figured that I'd done so much that God had given up on me.
Right.
But, you know, when I said that alcoholic's prayer, I felt like something's, like God said, you're going to be all right.
Right.
You know, but I was raised, I went to church. As a matter of fact, and this is one of the great things that sobriety has given me, the last 20 years, well, 15 years probably, but the preacher that baptized me and all my brother and sisters, he lived 2 doors down from me.
Yeah.
And we went out and ate once a week. I got to be a pallbearer at his funeral, you know, and he was a wonderful, wonderful man of God. He was a big influence in my life, you know, before, you know, when I was a child, and then so yeah, I always had God in, but I didn't think I was good enough to get to heaven.
Right.
You know, I thought I've just pulled so much stuff that
I
just might as well have fun
while you're
before I go to hell.
Right.
You know.
And so like you just got pretty much sick of everything, and people were, you know, making everyone misery and
yeah. Everybody was impending on what I was wanting to do.
Right.
You know, the thing about addiction is the addiction is just a symptom of our disease, and we have a spiritual disease.
Yeah.
You know, and the number one symptom is selfishness and self-centeredness.
Yeah.
You know, what am I going to do to get the next one?
Right.
What am I going to do, and who do I got to do it to get my next one?
Right. So like a lot of people, you know, that try to quit, a lot of people say, well, you can't go back to the same, like you can't hang out with the same friends. All that. Did you have to give up any of your friends, or did you?
Yeah.
You know,
I did, you know, but I'll tell you this, a small town like this, there was, you know, now I see, I had to for a while, but now my friends that I grew up with, that, you know, I drank with them and used drugs with them, I see them now, and I can, we go hang out, you know, we go out to eat, we go see friends of ours. And, but, you know, if I'm somewhere and there's, you know, there's drinking and stuff going on, and they're hooping and hollering and drinking it up, I'll stay for a little while, but then when they start acting goofy, I'll leave, you know. I'm thinking, but for the grace of God, there go I. But, you know, the difference is, and I understand this now, is they'll go, well, I got to quit, man. I'm getting a little buzzed. I got to quit. See, I never did that.
Right,
you know,
right, yeah.
You know, and the disease of addiction, it's like an allergy. And Dr. Silkworth talks about this a whole lot in the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. And it says that alcoholics have a allergy to alcohol, and the allergy is just an adverse reaction.
Right.
And what that does for me, when I take that first drink, it sets up the physical craving to where I have to put more and more and more in it.
Yeah.
You know, the craziest thing I've ever seen or heard is people say, oh, I got to quit. I'm feeling a little bit tipsy. Or leaving a half a drink in a glass.
Right. You couldn't
That's
understand
ridiculous.
that. Yeah, you couldn't.
That's crazy. You know.
You couldn't understand that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, I got to quit. I'm feeling tipsy. I said, what do you mean? You feeling tipsy?
You're
Well,
just
I'm
getting
drunk.
started.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
You know. And then once I started putting it in me, all I can think about is the mental obsession.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
getting another one.
Right.
You know.
And that was the same with drugs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that first hit of crack, that's the one that did you in.
Yeah.
You say, well, I'm going to wait till 6 o'clock, smoke this last little piece of rock, you know. And I
Right.
hit it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's rearranged my day because the most important thing was getting another one.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, that was
and
the most.
Did you ever, like, end up getting to the where you sold stuff and sold some of your stuff, or did you just have the money to just?
No, I
do
probably
whatever you wanted?
did, you know. I don't. I mean, I never, took the TV and pawned it, you know.
So you never did any pawning then?
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys, a lot of people could say
Yeah,
they pawned their life away. You know?
Yeah, my first drinking buddy, the one that lived next door to me, he tells the story of him being in the service. And I forget where he was. He might have been in Georgia. But there was an appliance place that was putting out they'd say, if you're a service, a member of the service, come on in and put down $20, or you don't have to put anything down, and you get this TV on terms. And he said he would go down and get a TV and go straight from the appliance store to the pawn shop and pawn it so he could get him money to drink on.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
that's the way that mind works, you know.
But you had the money, so basically, but you probably, have you ever just sit and thought about, or do you even know? You probably know the number that you've actually spent.
Oh my God, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
You could be a millionaire by now.
Yeah. I saw a buddy of mine. This has been quite a while ago, and we ran around together in high school, and after high school, and he said, I sure do wish that I had to spend all that money like we did on dope.
Right.
And I said, Bobby, I said, if you didn't spend it on that, we'd have wasted it on something else, But, it's mind-blowing.
Right.
You
Well,
know.
you say that. I mean, but you could have wasted it on a few custom
Sure.
old school cars, that's worth $100,000.
Yeah. But,
or more.
but I came to, and I was lucky when I had a sponsor in AA that was, I had known him when I was in high school, cause we'd cross paths in high school, and I don't want to tell all of his story.
No, yeah, you're good.
So
yeah.
anyway, I walked into AA meeting. There he was. He was one of those old
Okay,
dumb
cool.
guys, one of them dweebs sitting there,
Yeah.
and he was a real prominent member of the community, and I couldn't believe I saw him there.
Yeah.
And he said, I asked him to be my sponsor. And he guided me through, he was my sponsor for 9 years, and he died.
Oh,
and,
man.
and it was just, I get mad at him every time I drive by his house.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he pretty much, he really saved my life, And
Right.
he guided me through, the 12 steps. And so when you go through the steps, there's a bunch of house cleaning you have to do.
Right.
So you get rid of all that baggage, and then you turn around and you start working on your relationship with God.
Right.
And, he was the one, he gave me a set of instructions. And then my wife's preacher lived right across the street from us. I didn't go to his church. I went to another church, but my wife and all my wife's family was close to him. And my sponsor, he told me to tell my priest what I was doing. And I told my priest I was trying to get sober.
Right.
And he said, okay, we're going to have lunch once a week. And then I told my wife's preacher, and he took me under his wing. And, between those three guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. And the thing of it is there is a lot of people that are willing to help you get over the disease of addiction.
Right.
And you got to tell them, you know.
So, I mean, is that one thing that you could tell people, like if you had if you had something you could tell others that are trying to do it? I mean, basically, get over the pride and
exactly
and
yeah
have someone help you pretty much.
Yeah. James tells us in the big book that pride goeth before the fall.
Right.
Right.
And that's where people fail, I think, is they take that pride and they're like, oh, I can do this, but they don't want to, have a sponsor or follow the steps of. So, I mean, is that, so the 12 steps and all that, that's very important.
It's very important. That's the program of recovery.
Right, yeah.
And, out of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's the original 12-step program.
Yeah.
Every other 12-step program is based on those 12 steps. And I had a priest give me, not the priest I was telling you about, but I had a priest give me a book, and it was called the 12 Steps for Christians. And the only word it changes is in the first steps, it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. It says that in AA.
Right.
In this other book, it said we admitted we were powerless over sin, that our lives have become unmanageable.
Huh.
And, the first step says admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable.
Right.
Well, I had known I was powerless over alcohol for a long, long time.
Right.
But it's the unmanageability I couldn't see.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that my wife was taking her purse up to her bedroom so I wouldn't steal money out of to go buy crack
or something.
Yeah. I couldn't see that my wife didn't want me to go on vacation with them because I'd stay messed up the whole time. The unmanageability is what gets you somewhere.
Right.
I was talking to a guy, and we were at a ball game, and this other acquaintance was walking in, and this guy sponsored him that was walking in, and this other guy was in active addiction. And he said, boy, I'm glad I'm not an alkie like him. I said, you might be because you're living in your mother's basement. Your wife won't let your kids ride to school with you. Just listed the unmanageability. And it's the unmanageability that drives us to seek help if we're lucky.
Right. It's crazy.
The thing about addiction is most of the time people don't overcome addiction,
Right.
Most of the time they don't overcome it.
Do you believe in the saying where they tell you, you're always an alcoholic?
That's a funny question. I'm not an alcoholic. I went to a guy's.
I don't believe in that. That's why I say that.
I went to a fella the other night, a week ago last night, and he celebrated he'd been clean from drugs for 28 years, and he said, I'm not an addict anymore,
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself an alcoholic. I go to meetings, I say I'm an alcoholic. When I go to the other meetings, I say I'm an addict.
Right.
But I don't think I am. I think I'm a recovered.
Right.
But I know this: if I take a drink or get some weed and smoke it or something, it's going to set off. It's going to set off a series of events that if left unchecked, I would be right back where I was.
Right, and maybe that's the reason that they say.
Yeah, exactly.
That you say.
Yeah.
That's
that first IOP I went to, there was an old dude in there. He was in his 70s, and he'd been sober for a long time. And he was a Catholic, and he started taking the wine, drinking the wine. They had real wine, you know. And he said that's what got him. That's what set up the cravings and that's got him to drinking, you know.
The wine.
Yeah. Just drinking that a little bit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so there was a fellow that when I first came to AA, and we went to an Episcopal church, and it's where the meetings were, which the Episcopals were big in the AA movement because a lot of people didn't want the stigma of a bunch of drunks coming to a meeting at church. And the Episcopals said, yeah, come on, we don't, you know. So this guy would come once a year. The church would have an appreciation day or whatever, and it wasn't for the alkies. It was just for anybody, you know, just to show how they appreciate everybody in the pews. And they went to the service, and the guy that was new in AA, his sponsor told him, says, now you sit your ass back here on this back pew, and don't you get up when they call on when they go up to take communion, and don't you dare drink any of that wine, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because that wine will get you, it'll get that,
Really?
it'll get the setup.
So I guess you're talking more like Catholic then.
Catholic, Episcopalian, whatever, is where this church
yeah,
was, yeah.
That's crazy. I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
But, you know, something that I was, AA taught me, or the 12 steps taught me, is most of the time, as far as my prayer life, I didn't have a prayer life. I had a prayer life when I needed something. That's when I would pray.
Yeah.
Dear God, if you get me out of this one.
Right.
Or dear God, if you do this for me, and it was one of them foxhole prayers, you know.
Yeah.
And this book that the priest gave me about the 12 steps, he said, it said, most Christians pray like this. And the professed Christians, you know, they consider themselves spiritual people. They say, dear God, I need you to have this and this and this done by Friday at 5 o'clock, no later than Saturday at 10 o'clock. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. You know, and that's the way a lot of people pray, and that's the way I used to pray.
Man.
So you know, the 11th step says, sought through prayer and meditation. Now, let's see. Prayed for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out, you know. And so now that's what I have to pray.
Yeah.
I can't pray for anything for myself.
Right.
You know,
I never have, you know, I've always been one to, you know, not pray for myself.
Right. Yeah.
I've always been that way. You
See,
know?
that's the difference in alky and a,
right.
you know,
Right.
because we're, you know.
So when you actually decided to quit, you went through the 12 steps and all that.
Right, yeah.
Did
And continue
you start
to do
going
those.
to church regularly and, just kind of following?
And I had the funniest thing happen. I went to this church, little church, little Episcopal church, and I'd gone there since the time I was 14 or 15. And I was 45 when I went back. It'd been a while since I'd been there, but my mother had been going, and my family, you know, my sister got married in that church. My father got buried in that church, blah, blah, blah. We were, we were at that church all the time. Well, I went into this, when I made a point that I was going to get free from addiction, my sponsor told me, he said, go to church. You need to go back to church.
Yeah.
So I went into church and sat up on the second pew. That's where we sat. You know, people sat the same pews, the same place in church all the time.
Right.
My family sat on the second pew. I got up and walked out, and this guy, he got up. He'd been in that church from cradle to the grave.
Yeah.
And I knew his family, knew his kids. And I come walking out of the down the aisle, and he comes up and he puts his arm around me, and we're walking out, and he leans over and whispers in my ear. He said, "See, Matthew, the roof didn't fall in." And I, that was
Right.
you know, it was welcome back. You know, it's welcome back.
Right.
You know,
Right. Exactly.
You know, so I was given the instruction to say my prayers every morning and every night. And about 30 days after I decided to get sober, my sponsor asked me about how my prayers were going.
Right.
And I said, I guess they're going good, but I don't know how to pray. You know, and
Right.
he said, here's what you do. This is the only thing you do. This is the only thing you say. You get on your knees and you say this every morning. You say, God, dear God, help me stay clean and sober today. Amen. And then you get up and go do that.
Right.
And he said, at nighttime, you get on your knees and say, dear God, thank you for keeping me clean and sober today. Amen. And get in bed, you know. And so
Right.
so I've expanded from that, you know.
Right. That was like the
That was the
beginning,
very
yeah.
beginning, and I do it, done it every single day, I've never missed,
Yeah.
you know.
It's awesome.
Yeah. But you know, this stuff is I was talking to a fellow Sunday morning before church started, and I told him, I said, and I showed him, I said, listen, I want you to look at this, and I showed him this little counter I got on my phone. I said, you know, I've been clean and sober for however many days that is, over 7,500 days.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't show you that to brag. I said, I show you that for you to realize. I said, I didn't think a person could go a week without drinking.
Right.
I said, and I don't tell myself I'm never going to drink again. I tell myself, to make it easier on myself, I say, you know, I might have a drink tomorrow, but I'm not going to have one today.
Right.
You know. And so I was given a little set of instructions to do every single day. And I've done them every day, and I've expanded on them. But they've worked so well that I'm afraid to change anything. You know, I'm afraid to change any part of it.
Yeah.
You know, but and I go to a lot of meetings, and especially AA talks. You hear this in AA. You don't hear it in the other 12-step groups as much, but you will hear it every now and then. But the AA people, they think they're just mega spiritual, you know,
Yeah.
simply because they do these things every single day. You know, and I tell them, I say, you know, I know a lot of people that ain't dope fiends or drunks that have they're very concerned with their spirituality, and they work on it every day.
Right.
But for a alkie that's, you know, that's in recovery and have been in recovery for a while, I hear it said in church, you know, I don't read my Bible every day, and we just go crazy. We go, what? You don't read it? You don't do it every day? What's wrong with you?
Right.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
You know, and my wife would go, well, I didn't get to read my Bible today. I said, what? I didn't get to read my Bible today. I said, well, why didn't you? Well, I slept a little bit too late, and the kids came over.
Yeah.
And so that is unfathomable to somebody that's working a 12-step program.
Really?
You know, we have to do these things every single day. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Every day, man. You know, we drank every day. We took
Right.
dope every day.
Right. No,
So
yeah.
so we got to do this. We got to do this.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you've pretty much just switched it to that.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
I had to do something.
How long did you go to that church that you?
I went for, I tell you what, and it just so happened that I went to that church before I started going to AA meetings there. And then that denomination, they did some things that I didn't agree with.
Right.
Serving wine after church and
Got you.
crazy stuff, And I mean, they're doing great. I love them all down there. But it's just something that and for my spirituality, it doesn't work. For my program, it don't work.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I had a priest tell me one time, he said, as Christians, we believe in 90 to 95% of all Christians believe in 90 to 95% of the same thing. He said it's that little 5 to 10% that throws us off, So that's why, I like it where I'm at now. My wife and I get to go to church. We didn't go to church together for years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She didn't go back when you went?
She did, but she went to a different church.
Oh, okay.
And then she quit going to church, and I started going to church.
Right.
It's kind of funny,
Yeah, that's crazy.
But, so, like I say, we've been going to church together now for probably, 7 or 8, 9 years,
That's awesome.
I used to, and I saw it as a duty. My mother died in 2020, and she was 93.
Oh, man.
And I took her to church. I went and got her to church and took her to church for, last 15 years of her life.
Right.
And
That's awesome.
it got to the point where, hell, she'd take her, she'd start getting ready to go to church on Wednesday.
That's awesome.
And then COVID came along, and she didn't want to go to church, and it was just too much for her. I tell you a funny little incident. Is she died on my sobriety day. She died on my AA birthday. I'd been sober for 15 years, and she died on my AA birthday. And my wife said, that was God winking at you a little bit, to where I had the last 15 years of her life, she got to see me trying to be a good son, a good husband, a good father,
That's awesome.
a productive member of society.
Right. Yeah.
Which was the last thing I cared about doing,
Right. Right. That's crazy.
But, another reason why I continue to go to meetings after so long is there were people, when I walked in that room, there were people there that were willing to help me.
Right.
And the whole 12-step program, 12-step programs is based on one person helping another person,
Yeah.
One alkie helping another alkie, one addict helping another addict, And that's what the whole thing of a 12-step program is. The last step says carry this message to other alcoholics, carry this message to others, and for me,
others.
Yeah, help others, And the short synopsis of 12-step is trust God, clean house, and help others. Trust God, steps 1 through 3, clean house, 4 through 9, 4 through 10, help others 11 and 12.
Yeah.
So
you probably wouldn't know what to do if you wasn't doing that.
I
mean, it gives you something to.
Yeah.
Because you're helping people.
Right. Right.
And so you've had a lot of chances to sponsor a lot of people.
Yeah. I've sponsored a lot of people. I don't sponsor as many now.
Right.
But I've sponsored a lot of people. And I've had them, and I could count on one hand the ones that are still sober, probably.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
you ever think about, is there something I could have done? Do you ever put that on you?
I'm not powerful enough to keep anybody sober.
No, I know, but sometimes our conscience will let us think.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
Yeah. And I've talked to my sponsor about it.
Yeah.
And my sponsor, the sponsor I have now, he knew my first sponsor very well, and he was in the first step group that I was in.
Yeah.
And he's a big Jesus guy, man. He's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he really is.
So when did you start going to Kingdom House?
Probably it was on Main Street.
When they was on Main Street?
Yeah.
Well, that's probably 10.
It's been a while.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Josh.
How did you end up going to?
Well, my wife and her sister had gone to the church where Josh was at as youth director. And when he left, they wanted to go with Josh. Yeah. I think Josh started out on Washington Street
Mm-hmm. I remember.
with on Saturday night.
I remember that, yeah.
And they would go there and then go to the other church on Sunday.
Right.
And I was still going to the little Episcopal church. And so things just I just kind of matriculated, just kind of
Right. That's awesome.
went to, and I really like
Yeah.
Josh and Melissa. I like everybody there.
Yeah, right.
I like, and I don't worry about too much about what they're, you can always find something that you don't like about a church, but I haven't found anything.
Right. That's a good, yeah.
Yeah.
Same-
The only thing I
same
don't
here.
like,
Yeah.
the only thing about Kingdom House they could do better is they could get donuts every Sunday.
No. But yeah, I'm same here, man. Like, I mean, I wish I would have started going. Josh been trying to get me to start going for back when they were on Washington Street,
yeah.
But I was too faithful to Shelby Christian.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wish I would have went a lot sooner because, they're good people and it's a good church.
Yeah, they're good,
You can feel the spirit,
And they Shelby Christian, I think they've got a CR program out there.
Yeah.
And when COVID was going on, they let NA come out there and meet.
Yeah.
And they're great people. The Hammonds are great people.
Yeah.
I really like them. And that's what. And I tell them, hey, they look at me kind of funny. I'm thinking, y'all ain't got no corner on this spirituality thing because there's people out there,
Right.
and they say stuff like, I can't remember what it is now, but they try to some alkies try to put the AA program ahead of a church, up above.
Right,
Well, we're just a
I've
bunch
heard-
of
right.
drunks that been in hell. We're trying to get out and all that stuff,
Right.
And I don't know.
Yeah,
if
but that doesn't help you,
you
continue.
talk to anybody, and if they're having trouble, they thinking it's the worst trouble in the world. It's they're going through worse than
Right.
anybody, And when you get right down to it, if you live in the United States of America, and you're probably doing better than 98% of the people in the whole wide world.
Well, yeah.
You
That's
know.
what a lot of people don't understand.
And I write a gratitude list every day.
Yeah. Okay, so you journal pretty much.
Yeah, I just write a gratitude list, and it's
Okay.
all
Well,
the
kinda-
same thing.
It's kind of like
yeah.
the same, yeah.
But the
Some
last,
people swear on journal.
Yeah. The last thing that I put on there is something that reminds me that I'm not an alkie or I'm not addicted to anything.
Right.
Like I'm glad I don't have to. The most important person in the dope man in my life today.
Right. Right.
That
right,
kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But the rest of the stuff is stuff that money can't buy.
Yeah. Right.
A wonderful wife that loves me, healthy children,
Right.
good health.
So I didn't get into that. How many kids you have?
I got 2 kids and I got 3 grandchildren.
Awesome.
Been married to the same woman, wonderful woman.
All this time. Yeah.
She's not too smart because she married me. I mean that's.
So how old are your kids?
Um,
He's like, oh, really?
yeah,
You're
let
going
me
to ask
see,
me this
yeah.
question?
let's see. My son is he's born in. I was married in '91. He's born in '92, so he's 34.
Yeah. Gotcha.
33, 34. And Madison is 26, 27, 28, something like that. She's
okay.
they're gonna hate me
Yeah.
for. I'm not gonna tell you how old Sharon is.
No.
But my grandchildren, I got 3 grandchildren between the age of 11 months and get ready to come to 4. She'll be 4 or 3.5 years old.
Awesome, yeah. How you liking that life?
Man, they're a handful. They wear a pappy out, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to see them, They're glad to see me. They're glad to see me.
Right.
When I went to my first AA meeting, I walked in and they said, "We're glad to see you." Hadn't anybody been glad to see me for a long time?
Right. Yeah.
And then after the meeting, they said, "Keep coming back." Nobody had asked me to keep coming back for a long, long time.
Right.
So
it feels good to be more loved now from everyone.
Yeah.
Versus, yeah.
And
So your kids was young when you quit, didn't you?
Yeah.
So technically, your kids got to see.
My son got to see me at my worst.
Okay, yeah.
And it's, and that relationship has taken a lot to.
Because he was 12, 13 years
Exactly.
old.
Exactly.
When you quit.
Yeah. Now, my daughter was 6, 7, and she's, but that's the one thing that my regret the most about my alcoholism is the relationship, the harm that did in a relationship with my son.
Right, yeah.
Because, like I say, he saw me at my worst.
Well, yeah, but now y'all probably got a bond.
Well, we're all right,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not where I want to be, but
right. Well, that's just because he's grown. And
I understand that,
Yeah, but he's just grown. And,
Yeah.
And
it's not my business. It's none of my business what anybody thinks about me or how they feel about me. None whatsoever. I can't,
Yeah.
But, it's things are better. Things are a whole lot better than they used to be. As a matter of fact, if I'd kept on drinking and doping, I wouldn't be alive.
Right. You probably wouldn't be having this podcast right now.
No, man. There's no doubt. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. But,
right.
As far as these, the AA program, people ask me how it works. I say, well, it works very well. And the only thing you can judge a 12-step program by, is are you doing better today than the first day you walked in the door?
Right.
And I can say I'm doing a lot better.
Right.
I'm doing a lot better. But
that's awesome.
When you go to meetings, a lot of people won't give their last name. They say, I'm Matt W., I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
Any meeting I go to, I say, I'm Matthew Walters, I'm an alkie, I'm an addict.
Right.
And my first sponsor taught me, he said, I want to be anonymous, but I don't want to be too anonymous in case somebody needs some help,
Right.
And
right.
I was at a funeral first of last week, a week ago today, and I saw a girl, and I knew that she knew she'd worked with a couple people I go to meetings with, a married couple, but I didn't know their name. I didn't know their last name, so I couldn't tell her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That happens to us the older we get.
Well, no, I didn't. I've never known it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I knew them as so-and-so W.
Right.
I didn't have any idea what their last name was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because you don't, and
some don't, some just
right,
don't
right,
want to.
yeah. So
I mean, do you think that's good thing or bad?
Well, it's not as bad as it used to be, but there's a lot of stigma with being a dope addict or an alcoholic.
Right, from someone like
yeah. So, and the reason why that historically why they didn't do it was because if you relapsed, it would you say, well, there's Bill Jones. He was in that AA, but he just fell off the wagon. He's drinking and tearing up cars in his house just like he used to.
Yeah.
So it was to keep the stigma off the person, but to avoid people thinking badly of the program if somebody relapses and stuff.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So but I was just basically, the reason I asked that because I know some people, don't even want to talk about it. Like,
right.
I've had people that say,
exactly.
hey, I'd rather not even.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I thought but then I've had some people, it's like, no big deal. They don't care. They'll just spill it all. And I'm like, I wonder, does that mean that they're closer to being really sobriety versus someone that's like, I don't want to tell my story.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, because I would probably be one. I would honestly, I kind of understand it to a point because I would kind of be probably one of them guys where it's like, I don't want people to know that I was.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. I grew up in Shelbyville, lived here all my life. Shelbyville, I still consider it a small town. I know a lot of people. Everybody in town knew when I was drunk. And everybody now in town knows I'm sober.
Right.
In a small town, they know what you're doing. People know what you're doing. Yeah. So it really don't matter.
Right.
But
right. Well, with you, I mean, it's a good feeling because everyone. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm glad Matt made it through it.
Yeah. And there's not now. I'd say 50 years ago there was quite a bit of stigma to being labeled an alcoholic or a dope addict, but it's nothing like it used to be.
How long did it take for you to actually get to the point to where people believed you and they were like, yeah, he finally did? Like, because I know you had people like,
sure.
He's just,
Yeah. Different people, different
getting
lengths.
accused.
And, thank God that my mother and my wife believed in me and my sobriety.
More than anything.
The support group I had,
That was the most important.
Yeah, my wife and my mother, and in my circle of support group in AA. But different people, I'm sure had, and there's probably still some today that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I sponsor a guy that's been sober for over 40 years. Yeah. And I was talking to a guy that I knew, they were friends, and he said something about how wild this guy used to be, and I said, he's not been doing that for a long time. And he said, well, that's good because he don't need to do any of that. And this guy'd been sober over 40 years.
Yeah.
And somebody remembered how crazy he was when he was drinking.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah.
But, it saved my life,
Right.
And in the meantime, what it's done is made, I know that the most important thing in my life is my relationship with God.
Right. Right.
I know he's the director.
Yeah.
He's the boss. I can't tell him what to do. I try,
It don't work.
He don't listen. He's not a good listener.
Yeah.
He's better than me.
When he's not a good listener when you try to tell him what to do.
Yeah.
If it's anything other than that.
Right. Yeah, I had a guy that he's dead now. He was a wonderful, spoke all over the world at AA conferences. And he said if he has a good idea, he goes and tells somebody. And if it's a real good idea, he'll go tell them in person.
Yeah.
Because most of the time he said, my brain doesn't tell me these ideas that don't say, Don, I'm trying to, I'm an idea and I'm trying to kill you, which is what our thinking does,
Yeah. Right.
It'd be okay to take a drink,
Right.
Stuff like
right.
that. Yeah. But, it's.
Well, Matt, man, it was nice having you on, man. I really
Well, Rick, I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, it really was.
Like, okay, men's mental health. Has anybody asked you if you're okay?
No.
I went to jail for the first time when I was 10.
Ask yourself,
ask
if you're
yourself,
okay.
yeah, are you okay? Ask
That's
yourself,
a
are
good
you
one.
okay? You got to be careful because that snake will get you.
First band I was in, I was 16 years old.
It's a lot of heartbreak,
Yes.
a lot of misdirection.
Right.
Drug use gets worse, gets better, gets worse, gets better, gets way worse.
My brother quit
Just quit cold turkey.
cold turkey.
Drugs and alcohol wasn't a problem. I was the problem.